Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
And today we're looking at something really specific.
We are. We're diving into the sometimes contentious world of municipal integrity, focusing on just one single compelling document.
In that document is the final report of an integrity commissioner in IC investigation. It's about a code of conduct complaint against a Councillor Sherri Bell in the township of Ramara. And this report, which was prepared by Tony E. Fleming's firm, is fascinating because it forces us to look at the very strict boundaries of political behavior at the local level.
Exactly. This isn't just about local politics or, who called whom during a snowstorm. It's about setting a minimum standard of truth and conduct for an elected official.
Right.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We need to break down the two core allegations, look at the objective evidence the IC used to confirm a breach, and then get into the really high-stakes legal arguments.
It's a balancing act.
Yes, the balancing act between fundamental charter rights, specifically freedom of expression, and the duties of holding public office.
And these reports, they're like a perfect window into governance. They show you exactly how local authorities apply these really specific legal standards to protect public trust and, just as importantly, the neutrality of municipal staff.
So for you, the listener, the code of conduct is really the bedrock here. We need to focus on the specific sections the counselor was accused of breaking. Let's start with honesty.
Correct. The first set of rules falls under honesty sections 5.1 and 5.13 of the code. And basically, these sections say a member shall not make a statement they know is false.
Or one with the intent to mislead.
Exactly. Whether it's to mislead council, staff, or the public, it sets a very high bar for factual accuracy.
Okay, so that's the first bucket. The second one shifts focus to how counselors deal with administration. Section 19.6. Respecting staff.
Yeah, and this section is critical. It requires members to respect staff's political neutrality, their objectivity, and this is the key phrase, their professional capacities.
So you can't maliciously or falsely injure a staff member's professional reputation.
You can't. And we're going to see why attacking someone's expertise in public is treated so seriously later on.
All right, let's jump into allegation 1. This is the big factual dispute over what happened after the March 2025 ice storm. That storm was clearly a huge issue for the community.
It was. The setting is that August 25th council meeting. Councillor Bell is making statements about the leadership's response. She says the only communication she saw from the mayor or deputy mayor was on TV or radio.
Okay.
And then she says they were, quote, not visible on social media.
But the statements that really got her into trouble were much more definitive than that.
Oh, much more. She stated, and this is a direct quote from the report, that council did not receive any contact from the leaders, the mayor and deputy mayor, which is true.
Wow. Any contact is a sweeping claim. That's a total shutdown of communication she's alleging.
It's a huge claim of total neglect, and you could feel the tension in the meeting recording because the deputy mayor actually jumped in right there, saying he called council every day.
In her reply.
No, you called me once.
So now the IC has to figure out what's true. No contact, one call, or multiple calls.
Exactly. And this is where the integrity commissioner process really shines because it's not about hearsay. It's about hard, undisputed evidence.
Right, they don't have to rely on political spin.
Not at all. The IC requested and reviewed the phone logs and the email correspondence. And this is key. It was all provided to the member herself. She didn't contest the authenticity of any of it.
And what did that evidence actually show?
It was conclusive. I mean, completely conclusive. The phone logs documented multiple calls to the member during that recovery period.
Not one call.
Not one. She was contacted multiple times on April 3rd, and then again on April 4th and 5th. It just flies directly in the face of her claim of no contact.
And it wasn't just phone calls, right? There was written proof, too.
Yes. The report details an email from the deputy mayor on April 4th sent to the entire council. It confirms he'd called everyone and left updates, and he specifically addressed the member in it.
What did it say?
It said, Sherri, I went to VM. Please reach out if you have any questions. And that email, it also contained detailed point form updates on the storm status.
So the proof is sitting right there in her own inbox.
And it gets even more concrete. The IC also had a later email from April 7th, where the member herself replied to the deputy mayor's updates. She was asking detailed questions about the response.
Wait. So she was actively engaging with the very communication she later claimed in a public meeting that she never received.
That's it.
That seems like a stunning level of willful disregard for the verifiable record.
And that willful disregard is precisely what matters under those honesty sections, 5.1 and 5.13. The IC had to figure out if the statements were made knowing they were false.
Or with intent to mislead.
And given the record, the phone logs, her own emails, the IC found that her statements, counsel did not receive any contact and no, you called me once, were, quote, objectively false.
The facts were just not up for debate. Breach confirmed. This really sets the stage for the legal arguments that come later.
It does. It confirms that even in a heated political debate, you can't stand up in a recorded counsel session and knowingly misrepresent verifiable facts to the public.
Okay, let's pivot now to allegation 2. This tackles a completely different kind of duty. The internal conduct requirement, regarding staff.
Right. This also happened during that same August 25th meeting, but the topic switched to a technical debate about retaining walls and the building code.
The member was pushing for a deferral, I see. She wanted an outside legal opinion because she had a different take on a court decision.
Exactly. And this is where the tension went beyond a normal policy disagreement.
What was the specific thing she said that caused the breach?
She told the staff person presenting the report, who was the township's own building official, that they were not a lawyer or a subject matter expert.
Oof, that's the line.
That is the crucial sentence. And the IC's analysis here is so important for understanding how municipal government is supposed to work. They said, look, councilors have every right to disagree with staff recommendations. That's their job.
Sure, that's politics.
But this wasn't just any staff person presenting an optional policy. They were the official building official for the township.
The designated expert.
The designated statutory expert on matters of the building code. This is the person whose job it is to determine if a building permit is needed.
Oh.
So by telling them they're not a lawyer or a subject matter expert in a public recorded meeting, she was doing two things. One, she was undermining the professional capacity of that specific person.
And two,
she was undermining public trust in the whole administrative function of the township itself.
So it's not just a personal insult. It's framed as an attack on the institution.
Precisely. The IC called the statement an insult to the staff person and a condemnation of their qualifications. This is a direct violation of Section 19.6, which demands respect for the professional capacities of staff.
That kind of public demeaning seems really corrosive.
It is. It's seen as deeply damaging to the relationship between council and the administration that has to carry out their decisions. The IC acknowledged, look, the member had the absolute right to criticize the adequacy of the storm response. That is political speech.
Yes, there's a big but here.
A huge one. The IC ruled that the member was not entitled to intentionally mislead the public about verifiable facts, like the communication logs, in order to make that criticism.
So the restriction on her speech was narrow and reasonable.
Yes. The code restricts dishonesty, not criticism.
In other words, a politician is free to say the mayor's communication was awful and inadequate, but they are not free to say the mayor made no effort to contact me, when the record shows he did. Multiple times.
That is the absolute key takeaway. The member's defense even challenged the IC's right to do this, arguing the IC was, quote, not empowered with the jurisdiction to make orders or rulings surrounding the truthiness of any statement.
And the IC just flatly rejected that.
Absolutely. The IC stated very plainly that when the rule in question sections 5.1 and 5.13 is about whether a member has been truthful, then the inquiry must, by necessity, look at the truth of the statement.
The IC is the one empowered to protect the integrity mandate of the code.
Therefore, the IC has jurisdiction over the factual accuracy of statements made by elected officials during official business.
That seems like a monumental finding for governance. I mean, the explicit authority to judge the truthiness of a political statement when it violates a duty of honesty.
It reinforces that holding office comes with limitations on free speech that you or I don't face. You get to criticize, but you accept a limit on intentional, factual misrepresentation when you're acting in your official role.
So given all of this, the factual breaches, the robust legal defense, what was the final consequence? What was the penalty?
The IC made a very clear two-part recommendation for a penalty, which was a suspension of remuneration.
A suspension of pay.
Right.
So for the first part, the false statements about the ice storm communication, the breach of the honesty rules, what was the penalty for that?
A significant 40-day suspension of remuneration.
40 days. And for the second breach, the disrespect toward the staff person.
An additional 20-day suspension of pay. So the total recommended penalty was 60 days of remuneration suspended.
It's interesting to see the difference in severity there. Lying about verifiable facts costs twice as much as publicly insulting a staff member's expertise.
It really speaks to the IC's priorities. I mean, while disrespect is harmful, intentional dishonesty, especially about a public safety issue like a storm response, it just fundamentally compromises the IC's main objective: public trust.
Of constitutional rights.
The findings make it so clear. A politician has to be free to criticize the government, but they are absolutely not free to intentionally misrepresent the facts they use to build that criticism.
It's a complex, necessary balance between the heat of democratic debate and the need for accountability, all meticulously laid bare in this single municipal report. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.